There's no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. Yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports. There have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
These are multiple sightings by multiple modes. In other words, pilots, eyewitnesses, radar, visual sightings. These are very hard to dismiss, the handful of sightings. One over Alaska, another over Belgium, another over Iran. The handful of things that still cannot be explained defy known laws of physics. Those people assume that there may be 100 years ahead of us, in which case it's impossible for them to reach us. But if they're 1,000, 1,000,000 years ahead of us, then new laws of physics begin to open up. So we have to open our mind to the possibility that they're not just a super version of us, that they could be thousands, millions of years more advanced.
Tell me something that you've seen or that you've studied that you just feel in your gut there is something else out there.
Well, that you're saying it right. It's an intuitive feeling. After looking at the heavens and the modern pictures of the Hubble telescope, from the Hubble telescope, and seeing the complexities and the beauty and recognizing the universe is much more complex and magnificent than our earlier pictures, our earlier understanding would have ever let us imagine. And so that, you're right, that's the intuitive aspect of it. But the real question here that we've been addressing is, have we been visited? Are we, since we are now a spacefaring civilization, having only gone to our own moon, but have our visitors, the aliens, have they come to us? And all the evidence says yes.
Let me ask you, I mean, for all the stories that have leaked over all the years, I mean, and there's always somebody somewhere that's going to leak something, and if there was really something there, don't you think by now somebody would have said something?
Oh, it has. People have been saying it all along. But for example, just the explanation to the Roswell incident has changed every few years, and a new story comes out. If it were really that simple, if it weren't what it really was, you wouldn't need all of these various stories coming out. And so the attempt to cover this up and to disguise the issue and create misinformation and disinformation is very well recorded. And the documentation from very fine researchers like Dr. Robert Wood and his son Ryan, who've investigated all of the early documents, all point to the same story. Hey, we're not alone here when we've been visited. Realizing that I do, and many of us do now, that have seen the Hubble pictures from space, the universe that we live in is much more wondrous, exciting, complex, and far-reaching than we were ever able to know up to this point in time. And the fact we have wondered, were we alone in the universe forever? Only in our period do we really have evidence, no, we're not alone.
You know that objects have come from other places, not the Earth.
Here's my theory. Okay, we've got two possibilities. Two possibilities. The observed phenomenon, by the way, I've got a little document here that was released through FOIA request. It's from the Air Materiel Command, General Nathan Twining, admitting on the 23rd of September 1947 that the phenomenon is real and not visionary or fictitious.
What do you know?
So basically, there's an observed technology for at least 60 years that one can easily establish. The ability to hover without making sound, without disturbing the air, and accelerate from a standpoint to out of sight in the blink of an eye. So either there's an agency within some government in the world that's in possession of that technology and has kept it under wraps for 60 years I can definitively say
The
that.
government could be ours.
And it's a terrestrial explanation. There's a terrestrial explanation for that technology, or there isn't.
Or the government could be ours, too.
Or the government could be ours. So,
Which would explain its
Which would
making it a
explain
secret.
that they've kept this technology under wraps for 60 years or more.
I've read about this incident you had in 1951, and you said you saw literally hundreds of unidentifiable flying objects.
Yes, they were flying quite high. How high we couldn't tell because we couldn't get anywhere near their altitude. But they were either very large craft way up or smaller craft still well above what we could get to.
For a day and a half, all of this happened. But then no one wanted to talk about it.
Well, we sent a report forward on it, and the answer that finally came back months later was they were probably high-flying seed pods, which didn't sound very logical. As they were sitting there filming, a little saucer came from, I say little saucer, it was a saucer, came flying over their heads, put down 3 little landing gear and landed right out on the dry lake bed. And they picked up their cameras and started over toward it, filming as they went. And when they got in fairly close to it, it lifted up, put the gear back in the wheel wells, tipped up, and took off at a great rate of speed. And so they came into my office and told me what had happened, and I sent them over to develop the film. And then had to go through all the proper regulations of reporting this, and we wound up having to send the film forward to Washington in the base jet airplane, and I don't know whether anyone's ever seen it since.
I was on the White House for 4 years. I knew how the government operated. General Trudeau knew how the government operated, and the other people I worked with. We were familiar with the government. We were familiar with CIA's operations, State Department we knew this. We knew the way they operated and who the people were. In fact, I discussed this very thoroughly with Robert Kennedy, at the time Attorney General, the President's brother.
In this recently uncovered interview by Open Minds, Colonel Philip J. Corso claims that while he was the chief of the Army's Foreign Technology Division in the early 1960s, he made then Attorney General Robert Kennedy aware of an alien presence. Colonel Corso claims he spoke with Robert Kennedy face to face.
He knew about the flying saucers. I talked to him about it. I used to meet him when he was Attorney General right in his office.
Open Minds researcher Maurizio Baiata conducted the interview in July of 1997. At that time, he was editor of 2 magazines in Italy that dealt with the UFO phenomenon.
Corso was in Washington. The Attorney General was in Washington, so it was feasible that whatever delicate information had to go to the Attorney General. Corso, as in person, had to inform, and that was his own duty.
What went to Bobby went to the President also. In fact, before I testified when I testified in 1962 on my 4 years at the White House, before I consented to testify, I don't even get a subpoena. I told him, you still can't make me talk if I don't want to. The deal was, and Senator Eastland, Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, promised me, I told him, I will testify on the one condition, not that you put in the files and let it gather dust. Since I take all the risks, I will testify on the one condition, that you put this testimony in the hands of the Kennedy brothers. Senator Eastland assured me he'd do it personally, and he did. And that's why the Attorney General called me. He wanted to discuss my testimony first.
We have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments who have the courage to come forward here.
Small branches about an inch or less in diameter. 0148, we're hearing very strange sounds out of the farmers burning our animals. It's very, very active, making an awful lot of noise. Nothing of pigmentation. You just saw a light where? Wait, no, slow down. Where? Right in this position here, straight ahead, in between the tree. There it is again. Watch, straight ahead off my flash right there. So there it is. Hey, I see it too. What is it? We don't know, sir. So can I get some of it? Yeah, it's a strange, small red light. You'll see out maybe a quarter to half mile, maybe further out. I'm going to switch off. The light is gone now. It was approximately 120 degrees from the site. Is it back again? Yes, sir. Oh, that's the flashlight's in. Let's move out to the edge of the clearing so I can get a better look at it. See if you can get the star scope on it. The light's still there, and all the barnyard animals have gotten quiet now. Yeah, we're heading about 110 to 120 degrees from the site. I'm through to the clearing now. Still getting a reading on the meter. About 2 clicks. Meter's jumped 3 to 4 clicks, getting stronger. Now it's coming up. Hold up. There we go. About approximately 4 foot off the ground. Comes to setting of 110 degrees. All right, I just turned the meter off. Got to say that again. About 4 feet off the ground, about 110 degrees, getting a reading of about 4 clicks. Yes, sir. Yeah, but excuse me. Now it's dying. Now it's dying. I think it's something other than the ground. I think it's something variable here. Tree right over. We just spoke to the first night bird we've seen. We're about 150 or 200 yards from the site. Everything else is just deathly calm. There is no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. It's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There is no doubt about it. This is weird. To the left. Yeah, definitely moving off. Two lights. One light to the front, okay. One light to the left. Keep the flashlights off. There's something very, very strange. Keep the headset on. See if it gets any stronger. Okay. Give us a rundown. Notation that this is on the beta reading too. It's on the beta reading? Beta okay. Still has been removed. Okay. Pieces are falling off it again. And it just moved to the right. Yeah. Off to the right. Strange. Oh, what are you doing left? Let's approach to the edge of the woods up there. Can you undo without lights? Let's do it carefully. Come on. Okay, we're looking at the thing. We're probably about 200 to 300 yards away. It looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side. And when you put the star scope on it, it sort of has a hollow center, a dark center. It's like a pupil of an eye looking at you and winking. And the flash is so bright to the star scope that it almost burns your eye. We passed the farmer's house and across in the next field. Now we have multiple sightings of up to 5 lights with a similar shape and all, but they seem to be steady now rather than a pulsating or glow with a red flash. We just crossed the creek, and we're getting what kind of readings now? Getting 3 good clicks on the meter, and we're seeing strange lights in the sky. 244, we're at the far side of the second farmer's field, and made sighting again about 110 degrees. This looks like it's clear out to the coast. It's right on the horizon. Moves about a bit and flashes from time to time. Still steady or red in color. Also, after negative readings in the solar field, we're picking up slight readings, 4 or 5 clicks now on the meter. 305. We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon. 305 at about 10 degrees horizon directly north. We've got 2 strange objects, half moon shape, dancing about with colored lights on them. About guessed to be about 5 to 10 miles out, maybe less. The half moons have now turned into full circles. As though there was an eclipse or something there for a minute or two. 0315, now we've got an object about 10 degrees directly south, 10 degrees off the horizon. And the ones in the north are moving, one's moving away from us. It's moving out fast. This one on the right's heading away too. Yeah, we're both heading north. Okay. Here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal. 330, or 0330, and the objects are still in the sky, although the one to the south looks like it's losing a little bit of altitude. We're turning around and heading back toward the base. The object to the south is still beaming down lights to the ground. 0400 hours, there's one object still hovering over Woodbridge Base at about 5 to 10 degrees off the horizon, still moving erratic and similar lights and beaming down this area.